Hey y'all, welcome to the Skintrovert. I'm your host, Sam Bazile. And I have to be honest, there was another topic that I was going to talk about today, but I changed plans because I got the sweetest email from this little esthetician, and I have to tell y'all the story. I'm not telling her name or anything, so I don't think she would mind, but I wanted to share this because I can relate, okay? So she sends me this email and she says, listen, I graduated from insert school, aesthetic school in my area, and I just don't feel prepared. I don't feel adequate. Girl, preach. I totally get it. But I do also appreciate her reaching out. And so here's what she said in so many words. She said, I want to know what's out there. I am an esthetician. I work on my own. I'm in a little salon suite, and I only offer very light chemical peels. Yes, I've been trained by the company on the light chemical peels that I offer, but I don't know what else is out there. And if I get a customer or a client that comes in and I feel that they could benefit from something more aggressive or more corrective, I want to know the options out there so I can start scanning in my area to find someone to refer them to. Sweet little baby child. Y'all, that was the sweetest thing that I've ever heard. Like, she wants to do right by her clients. It's not about, let me keep all the money to myself. It's, I want to do right by them and I want to help them reach their goals. And if it's something that I cannot offer because of my scope of practice, I want to make sure they get what they need. Kiss her on the mouth. I could. Okay. So she's getting it. I'm not going to talk about what I had to talk about. I'm talking about chemical peels. So, sweetie, you got it. And if anybody else wants to hear specific topics, you can always reach out to me. You can reach out to me straight to me, no one else, at skintrovertsam@gmail.com. I'm always happy to hear from you, especially if there's something specific you want me to talk about. So let's give the girl what she wants and what she needs. We're going to talk about chemical peels today. So I'm going to say this little disclaimer before I start talking. This is Sam information. Okay. This is information that I have gathered after all of my years in the aesthetics field, whether in the treatment room or out in the aesthetics field. This is my information to share. I do not want you to take what I say as matter of fact, and this is the only right answer. I just want this information that you get from me and in future episodes to just inspire you to learn more. I want you to find something that interests you that I talk about, and maybe it just intrigues you and it gets you excited about taking your knowledge, your education about this field and the aesthetics things that we have. And I hope it inspires you to grow and learn from that. Okay. So there's that. All right. So chemical peels. If you are going to put a chemical on a patient's skin, you have to know what you're doing. First and foremost, I think the most important thing to know is why we're doing it. Why are you putting a chemical wound to the patient's skin? So depending on which chemical peel you choose, which ingredient you are utilizing, that peel is going to do one of two things. It's either just going to lightly exfoliate, or it's going to correct and rejuvenate the tissue. So basically, with the more aggressive options, we're applying a chemical wound to the skin to force the regeneration of new and healthy tissue. We're rejuvenating the skin. With more of the lighter chemical peels, we're forcing a superficial exfoliation for rejuvenation to give the patient that nice dewy glow that they love. So that's what we're doing to the skin. And so it's important to know, if you want to dive into the specific chemical peel ingredients, it's not so much as what is this chemical and what does it do? It's why am I choosing this for the patient? Why am I going with this specific chemical? And I say that with love because, listen, I did it. When I was an esthetician, I had my books filled and it was like, oh, you have a 3-step peel today. Cool. Oh, you have a glycolic peel today. You have a lactic, a salicylic. So I just had these things scheduled and yeah, they come and they do it. But that's not really being like a responsible esthetician. That's also, side note, this is why I need notes because I just get on a tangent. But some of these booking apps that you have, maybe y'all have like another chain of command that like after they book, someone contacts them to confirm the booking. But like if you have a booking app that they can just go on and book whatever they want, that sucks because what if they're just not a candidate? And then you've booked this time for them and then they can't get it. I don't know. Some of these apps are just like wild. These AI apps too are wild too, because I feel like it just is a general way to kind of categorize people, and our skin is just so unique and our needs are so unique. So I feel like sometimes we just need a human, an experienced human to kind of look at us and tell us what we need. Okay. So anyway, that's what I used to do. Not good, Sam. And now I know better, but I think it's important that when a patient comes in, you need to figure out what their goal is for treatment. Once you know what they would like to see from the treatment, whether it's superficial exfoliation or whether it's correction, then at that point, we can determine what chemicals we're going to use to perform the chemical peel. All right. So let's talk about where we want to target. Maybe if your patient wants that light epidermal, that little superficial exfoliation, you're going to want to focus on chemicals that work on the epidermal tissue on the top. So that's going to be your stratum corneum. That's that outer layer that we see, touch, feel. So I'll just tell you that's called the stratum corneum. The stratum corneum is made up of things like your skin cells. I want you to think of the skin cells as like bricks, okay? And the mortar to those bricks is your lipid barrier. That lipid barrier is made up of things like lipids, proteins, fatty acids, cholesterol. They envelop those skin cells and make a strong brick wall. So if your skin barrier is healthy, you have a nice, strong brick wall. So what these chemicals are going to do is they're going to loosen up the desmosomal bonds that hold those cells together. And that's what causes the exfoliation. So some of these lighter chemicals are going to give you that single cell shedding, which is important to talk to your patient about because some of these chemical peels don't actually cause peeling. And that's why, because all we're doing is we're loosening up the glue, the desmosomal bonds that hold the cells together so it can help encourage exfoliating of a cell here, exfoliating of a cell there. And our eyes are just not trained to see single cell exfoliation. So your patients may not see actual peeling with some of your choices, and that's okay. Even if they're not seeing it, it doesn't mean it's not happening. So it's a good thing to talk about when you introduce certain chemical options, and we'll talk about those options. But when you choose epidermal, you are going to utilize alpha hydroxy acids, otherwise known as AHAs, or beta hydroxy acid, otherwise known as BHAs. And yes, I'm looking at notes. I don't want to hear y'all know she's looking at notes because sometimes when I do these podcasts and I go back and I watch, I get off on a tangent and I forget to talk about things that are really freaking important. I don't want to do that. So I'm holding myself accountable today with notes. Okay. All right. So AHAs or BHAs we can use. You can also use a low dose TCA and maybe just a single layer TCA just to get that epidermal. So those are the things that are going to help promote exfoliation. It's going to give the patient that radiant glow because they're exfoliating. It's also going to help with maybe some superficial freckling, maybe some little etched fine lines, milia, papular pustular acne. Estheticians, listen, when you are touching a patient's skin, if you can feel lumpy bumpies or superficial texture, if you can touch it, it's on the epidermis, and we want to work epidermal to start smoothing out that skin. So that's where you want to target. No need to rip the skin up if we don't have to. If we can use something light to just give them what they need superficial, awesome. Next, maybe they want more correction. So maybe they want something like tightening. Maybe they want to work on scarring, maybe some acne scarring. Maybe they have some deeper wrinkles, some deeper folds, some more deeper texture. Or maybe you're dealing with melasma, things that are more dermal. Maybe you're dealing with cystic nodular acne. So if you're dealing with something that roots more dermal, you want a chemical peel that is going to work on the dermal tissue. And what do we utilize for that? We utilize high dose TCA, multi-layers. That's how we get dermal. Now let's talk about those alpha hydroxy acids or those AHAs. So like I told you, they work on the epidermis, loosen up the desmosomal bonds that hold the cells together so you can get that superficial exfoliation. And if you're introducing an AHA, let them know, or a BHA, you're not going to see peeling. Otherwise, they're going to be disappointed. They're going to be like, girl, I'll pay for a chemical peel and I didn't peel. What the hell? That's because you didn't explain it. Shame, shame. All right, so let's talk about some of these alpha hydroxy acids. So one alpha hydroxy acid that is probably the most popular, the most used is going to be glycolic acid. Glycolic acid is typically derived from sugarcane unless it's synthetic, and it's a small molecular size, so it penetrates deeper. Can be a little bit spicy, especially in more compromised or sensitized skin, but usually tolerated well with most skin types. Very good for superficial exfoliation, very good for that papular pustular acne, also good for the little light etched lines. Another one, lactic acid. Lactic acid does everything that glycolic acid does, but it's slower because it's a larger molecule. So since it's a larger molecule, it actually penetrates very slow and it's gentle, typically derived from milk, and it's very hydrating. So if a patient is on the drier side, it can help promote hydration. Another option, citric acid. Citric acid is interesting. So citric acid helps to brighten, comes from citrus, hello, okay? But it can be more irritating because of the pH of the acid. So if you apply a mild peel that has citric, you may tell the patient you might experience some redness, you might experience a little bit of irritation, all normal. Another option, mandelic acid. Typically derived from almonds unless it's synthetic, largest molecular size of those acids that I talked about. Very slow penetration, so typically a more gentler option. And then last, malic acid typically comes from apples, very gentle, another one that can hydrate. So some of those alpha hydroxy acid peels that you'll see on the market may contain one or more of these alpha hydroxy acids that I talked about. Lots of them have synthetic blends that I love, or proprietary blends that I love. One of my absolute favorites, it's called the Zeo Stimulator peel. It has lactic, citric, and glycolic acid. So it's a great blend that kind of covers several different skin concerns. I call it the light and bright and tighten. So you see what I mean? It's finding what you need for your patients and aligning with that with the services and the products that you offer. It's just that simple. Okay, so we didn't talk about beta hydroxy acid, or BHA, and the most common is going to be salicylic acid. Beta hydroxy acids are a little different from alpha hydroxy acids because alpha hydroxy acids are water soluble. Beta hydroxy acids are oil soluble. They help to dissolve sebum. They unclog pores. They exfoliate the dead skin cells. Yes, they have antibacterial properties. They can reduce inflammation, but they can be a little bit drying. So they're really great for acne. And salicylic acid specifically comes from the bark of the willow tree. It is the most common beta hydroxy acid. And yes, it can be a little bit drying. I learned something though that I'm going to share with you about salicylic acid being a little drying. So a lot of times I've heard, like in the field, ooh, she's got a salicylic acid allergy. I think a lot of times we throw around that term allergy like very loosely, okay? So I would challenge you to see if it's a true allergy or if it's a sensitivity, okay? Because getting red and dry isn't exactly an allergy when it comes to specific acids, especially salicylic acid. And what I learned is maybe they're not necessarily allergic, but they're more sensitive to the alcohol content in the sal acid. So fun fact, salicylic acid is a crystal, and when it's put into products and made into a solvent, they mix it with alcohol so it can melt and go into the product. Well, sometimes the sensitivity, let me correct that, the sensitivity comes from the alcohol. So if you've ever used salicylic acid and you got really red or really dry or really irritated, I would encourage you to give a water-soluble salicylic acid a try. Okay, usually that's in some random products, not in chemical peels though. So unfortunately, if you've had a salicylic allergy or a sensitivity, I would not encourage you to do a salicylic acid peel. Okay, so that's all going to be epidermal, superficial. And here's the deal. That's where most estheticians can play. Most estheticians, at least here in Louisiana, epidermal is our play area. Dermal, physician only. So that's just a little tip. If you're an esthetician out there and you're unsure of your scope of practice, I would definitely get with your state board, figure out where you can play and not do anything lower than that because you ain't trying to get your hand slapped or lose your license. So let's talk about if dermal is the goal. Okay, so if they want to do treatment for leveling, tightening, scarring, deep lines, you want to work on that dermal tissue. So how do we do that? We do that with TCA. Okay, the name for TCA is trichloroacetic acid. Okay, so TCA, it's going to give actual sheet peeling. Remember how we talked about alpha hydroxy acid? You may not see any irritation or peeling because we're just loosening up those bonds and we're promoting a good exfoliation. TCA is different. TCA actually causes a wound to the skin. You are going to see actual peeling with TCA because unlike the alpha hydroxy and the beta hydroxy acid, this isn't just removing the glue that holds the cells together. It's actually causing the proteins in the skin to coagulate and change shape. And when that happens, the cells die. So we're causing an actual controlled injury, a wound to the skin to force the regeneration of new healthy tissue. Remember, this process is rejuvenation. It's a controlled wound. So, of course, obviously, we want to go to someone that knows what they're doing, that is keeping an eye as they're applying those layers, because that's how you work TCA. That's how a physician or a provider is able to gauge where at in the skin they are going with the TCA. Because depending on the percentage, whether it's a high percentage and how many layers they are applying, they're able to see and gauge based on the reaction of the cells in the skin, how deep they're going. That is why I love, if you are going deep, if you are a plastic surgeon, a dermatologist, and you are going deep with TCA peels, I love the controlled depth peel from Zio. Dr. Obagi developed this peel a long time ago. He's just refined it and perfected it, and now it's called the controlled depth peel, but it has this blue dye in it, and the blue dye helps you to really accurately predict where you're going in the skin, so there's no room for error. You're able to just be very precise. So just a thought and a suggestion, if you are doing deep, to have a guide. If you are new or you're inexperienced, something like that could be very helpful for you. All right. I would also say this: be very careful when you treat dermal. Okay. So like I said, I, as an esthetician, can't play in the dermis, so it's not a concern for me. But if you are legally able to treat dermal, you want to be very careful, because when you cause injury to the skin, you want to make sure that the patient is going to get very safe treatment, predictable healing. Those are the things that are really important with something deep. So when you injure the skin, if the skin is not preconditioned or healthy, you run the risk of things like post-inflammatory hyperpigmentation, or PIH. You run the risk of PIE, which is post-inflammatory erythema. You can potentially cause scarring. You can have sensitivity, disease flare-ups. And I'll tell y'all about something that happened. I had a patient that came in to see me, and she had gotten a CO2 laser from another practice. And I even looked at the before and after pictures. I really don't know why this happened. They seemed very precise with the treatment, with the settings. But see, that's what happens. It's like I wasn't there to analyze her skin, take a look at her skin before, but judging by what they did with the actual procedure, everything was like by the book. So what happened afterward, I was like stumped. So she comes in 6 months post, you guys, 6 months after this aggressive CO2 laser. Red, inflamed. Now, she didn't look as bad as she did, obviously, when she was post, but she was still very red and very inflamed. You could see mild swelling, and I was asking her questions, and she said, listen, I go and I put Vaseline on because that's what they told me to do, because my barrier was wrecked, and even the Vaseline burns. You guys, Vaseline is occlusive, and it should not burn, although Vaseline would not have been my choice, but every provider has their own way of handling post-care. But Vaseline should not burn, babe. So Houston, we have a problem. So that's what happens when you run the risk of playing in that dermal tissue. If you are not careful, if the patient's skin is unhealthy, you run the risk of that. You run the risk of causing this long-term chronic inflammation and sensitivity in the skin. So I would definitely recommend, if you are going to do dermal, just make sure you know what you're doing. So here's this thing. When the skin is healthy, when the patient's skin is healthy, the results are predictable and they're safe. The patient heals beautifully, and there is little to no risk. So I would also advise to make sure you're doing your due diligence prior to injuring the skin, that you're giving the patient time to get their skin healthy before treatment. So I'm going to give you an example. Like, let's say you're a plastic surgeon, okay? And a patient comes in and she's a smoker, she's a diabetic, and she has an open wound on her stomach. Would you work on her? Would you cut on her skin? No, you would not, because that means she's not going to heal well, and the risk of complications is very high. And no plastic surgeon wants to have a risky patient that could potentially be harmed, and also harm their reputation. So they're going to make the patient, they're either going to say you're not a candidate, if they know that the patient's problems cannot be healed, but if they know that the patient can quit smoking, can get their, you know, issues, their chronic illnesses under control, they can heal wounds, then maybe we can talk about getting you the surgery that you want. It's kind of like the same concept with a chemical peel. Like when a patient comes in and they have these maybe autoimmune flares, or maybe they have just active acne or sores, open wounds on the face. Maybe they have, you know, some cold sores. They're not going to peel, or you should not chemical peel a patient when they have these concerns. You want them to be healed, then we injure the skin. But it may not be something that major. Maybe they have a compromised barrier. If the barrier is compromised and unhealthy, you don't want to apply a chemical peel to their skin. You're just going to cause problems later on down the road. It's going to be very difficult for them to get that barrier healed after it's been wounded. So take the time to what we call precondition the patient's skin. Get the patient's skin healthy prior to treatment. That way, when you're injuring healthy tissue, just the same way as you've got a nice, healthy patient that plastic surgeon's going to operate on. If the skin and the body is healthy, they heal very well, very predictable, beautiful results. That's what we want for our chemical peels and our in-office procedures that are going to cause wounds. We want to make sure that we are wounding healthy skin, so that way the results can be beautiful and predictable healing. All right, so what does preconditioning or healing look like? And is it the same for everyone? And the answer is no. I actually learned something very valuable from Dr. Obagi, and it was a game changer for me in my career. So I just want to share those little nuggets with you. You don't have to agree. You can tell me to go on with yourself. But this was something that was helpful for me. So there's got to be somebody out there that this is also going to be helpful for. So first, let me tell you the tool that I was given to utilize prior to wounding treatments for patients. I was given the Fitzpatrick scale. And is the Fitzpatrick scale a bad tool? No, it's not. Fitzpatrick scale is a scale that tells you, it's from 1 to 6, and it basically tells you what color the patient's skin is and how they respond to the sun, how they burn, or if they burn in the sun. So what color they are, how their skin responds to the sun. And could that be helpful? Yes. But I would challenge you to go a step further, because while it tells me what color they are and how they respond to the sun, it doesn't tell me how they respond to injury. And what tells me how they respond to injury is typically ethnicity. Ethnicity is going to tell me how their skin responds to injury and if they are more prone to post-inflammatory hyperpigmentation. So Dr. Obagi developed something that was helpful. So yes, the Fitzpatrick scale can be helpful, but what he did was he took all color classes and he classified them in 3 different groups. The 3 different groups are called original, deviated, and complex. And why this is helpful is because it takes color to a different level. So let's talk about these 3. First, original. This means you are original to your skin. You do not have race, you are not racially or ethnically mixed at all. So original white, original black, original Asian. Typically, these skin types that are original, not racially or ethnically mixed, they're very stable after these injury treatments. They heal well. PIH, if it happens, is very, very rare and can heal very quickly. So what Dr. Obagi recommends for preconditioning for original skin types, take about 1 keratinocyte maturation cycle, which is 1 skin cell turnover cycle, which averages about 6 weeks. So take about 6 weeks of preconditioning to get the patient's skin healthy to ensure that they're going to heal well and we get beautiful results. The second skin type is called deviated. This is racially or ethnically mixed. And you know what? I see a lot of deviated skin types here in Louisiana because we have beautiful Creole men and women. So we have lots of biracial mixed skin types that can be a little bit difficult when we treat. So, if they are deviated, they're going to be slightly unstable after treatment. This means they're probably going to get PIH if you don't precondition. And because they are racially or ethnically mixed, that PIH is going to be a little bit stubborn to treat. And we don't want that, right? We don't want to cause PIH and then it's difficult to treat. So, to make sure that they heal well and we get beautiful results, you are going to do, according to Dr. Abaji, 1 to 2 keratinocyte maturation cycles, which means about 6 to 12 weeks of preconditioning to get the skin healthy. And the very last skin type, which unfortunately is going to be the most difficult skin type that you will ever treat, and I implore you, please be so careful with these skin types. This is going to be your Indian skin types. They are mixed racially. So it's going to be India, Pakistan, surrounding regions. They are extremely unstable after rejuvenation treatments. So PIH will happen and it is very severe and very difficult to treat. So Dr. Abaji recommends about 2 to 3 keratinocyte maturation cycles or 12 to 18 weeks of preconditioning. Now, how many of us are doing that? Not many of us. I could tell you I certainly didn't. And you want to know why? I'm going to tell you why. Because when patients come in, they want the damn peel or they want the laser. They want it right now. They've saved up their money or they've gotten themselves psyched up about getting it. So the last thing that they want to hear is, babe, you're going to have to take a good 6 weeks of using these products that I'm going to make you buy. So they immediately are like, no. Please educate them on why. Because here's the deal. We cannot do it. We cannot precondition. That's okay too. As a provider, listen, guys, you get to do whatever you want. Okay. You get to make decisions that you feel are best for your patient. That's not for me. I'm not looking at the patient's skin. I'm not involved in their care. So it's not up to Sam to say what's best for them. I'm just giving you nuggets that were very helpful to me. If you choose not to precondition, cool, babe. But also understand that the science of the skin is the science of the skin. And most skin types out there, specifically deviated complex, they are going to respond to injury with pigment. That is what those melanocytes are designed to do. They are designed to respond to injury with pigment. So taking the time to get the skin healthy, making sure you've got a good, strong barrier, a good, strong brick wall. That's one of the things you want to make sure is good. So we want to flood the skin with hydrators, put the mortar back to the bricks. Second thing we want to do is we want to make sure that they have an adequate keratinocyte maturation cycle. We want to make sure that it's healthy. It's not delayed. So it's about at that 6 to 8 week mark. So we know we've taken the adequate time. Third, if they are prone to pigment like deviated complex, we want to bring in a pigment suppressor to put that little melanocyte to sleep. Because if that little melanocyte is asleep, it does not respond to the injury trigger. So we lessen the chance of experiencing post-inflammatory hyperpigmentation. So what tools do you have in your practice to make sure that you're preconditioning? I would encourage you to take a look and make yourself very familiar with the products that you offer. Make sure you have tools to do those 3 things. 1, flooding the skin with hydrators, putting the mortar back to the bricks. Go through your product lineup, make sure that some of those products that you offer are going to do just that. They're going to offer hydrator properties, but not just a moisturizer Band-Aid. Let's also see what it's doing to stimulate your natural moisturizing factors, sealing up the barrier, okay? So some options like that. I know a lot of you watching carry Zeo Skin Health, so if you want to know specifically what Zeo offers, that's going to be your Daily Power Defense. Daily Power Defense is your barrier buddy. It is going to flood the skin with hydration, seal the mortar back, so that way we have a good, strong brick wall. So if you don't carry Zeo, just check your products and ask your rep if you're unsure. See what they offer for good preconditioning for barrier. Number 2, we want a good, healthy keratinocyte maturation cycle. We want a good, healthy turnover cycle. So what does that? Your retinoids. So bring in a retinoid to speed up cellular turnover to make sure that we have a good, healthy KMC. One thing I want to make sure you know, though, if you're using retinoids that are spicy, things that are going to be active, like retinoic acid, so tretinoin, retin-A, Tazrac, or the more aggressive retinols, you're going to want to stop those actives a few days before treatment. Some providers will tell you to stay on. So maybe the peels that they're utilizing are milder, or they want more of a stimulation. So just know your peels to know if they need a break from their actives beforehand. So that's what the retinoids are going to do. So make yourself, familiar with the retinoids that you offer in your practice so you know what to bring in to a preconditioning protocol. And then number 3, pigment suppressors. Okay. My favorite pigment suppressor for preparing for injury treatments is always going to be hydroquinone, unless something else amazing out there comes out. But for now, I always default to hydroquinone because it really is a good job at suppressing. And who doesn't love that little, nice little bleaching effect that it gives? That's just a little extra perk. So that's going to be your preconditioning, and it's going to depend and be a little bit different depending on what skin type we're dealing with and how their skin responds to injury. So I would say if you are an original skin type, I would always make sure that you're doing your barrier buddy and you're doing a good retinoid for preconditioning. But if you are complex or deviated, I would make sure you're doing a barrier buddy, make sure you're doing a retinoid, make sure you're doing a hydroquinone, and just stop those actives prior to treatment if your provider says that that's part of your post-care. So that's important. Preconditioning is important, making sure that you're selecting the right thing for your patient. And you can only do that by truly understanding the options that you have in your practice. So I'll go ahead and back off now and just tell you, again, I know that there are tons more peel options out there that I didn't talk about. So what I brought up today are just ingredients or peels that I've used in my time as an esthetician. I just hope, like I said, I just hope that this encourages you to dig deeper. I hope this encourages you to learn more about all of the things that you offer, because really that's going to be the only way that you're going to master the services and the products that you have. And if you are a patient that's watching this, there's nothing wrong with asking those questions to your provider, asking them is there a preconditioning time? If so, what does that look like? And if you're a patient and you have a provider that tells you no, you need to love on them. Because a provider that tells you either no or not yet is an educated provider that knows what they're doing. Sometimes we need to be told no, because sometimes as a patient, we don't know the reasons why. We don't know our skin health. We don't understand the things that they do. So it's important that you trust your provider. And if they tell you, I can't do the chemical peel today, but I want to get you on these products, it's not a sales pitch, guys. They're trying to get your skin strong and healthy. So you have, say it with me, healthy, good post-care. You're going to heal well and you're going to get beautiful results. That is the goal. So that's it. That's all I've got for my little basic chemical 101 information for you guys. I am so grateful to that sweet little esthetician that reached out and asked for this. I'm also grateful to her that she's willing to source out things that she can't do. Man, I wish we could all just be as confident as she is, just starting out her career and feeling inadequate. So I just want to commend her. Yes, you may feel a little inadequate. You may feel that there's things that you don't feel super comfy with right now, but you've learned a lesson that lots of us that have been in this industry for over 20 years haven't learned. So good job, babe. You're doing well. All right, for everyone else, y'all stick around. I've got another topic coming out next Tuesday. Hi, my merch is ready. I'm going to be putting that on the website soon. So y'all get out there, get your Skintrovert merch. And it's trademarked, so better not have it. It's for me. Don't you do it. Okay. All right, guys, y'all have a wonderful day. Y'all reach out if you need me. Remember, you can reach me on all social media platforms as the Skintrovert. And if you want to reach out to me directly for anything, you could reach out to me at theskintrovertsam@gmail.com. All right, guys, see you later. Till next time. Bye. Think of the Skintrovert as your aesthetics roundtable, not a training manual. This podcast is for professional education and discussion. It's not medical advice. Your scope of practice matters, regulations vary, and your license always leads. To continue the conversation, follow the Skintrovert on Apple, Spotify, or any platform that you listen to your podcast.